American people are sick and tired of paying ridiculously high gasoline prices and then at the pump, and then paying big oil again with our collective taxpayer subsidies, which they get. I think that money is better spent keeping our economy going and developing alternatives to oil that will create competition in the marketplace and help to reduce gas prices. Madam President, we're poised to waste $24 billion over the next 10 years, subsidizing only 5 companies who are poised to make over $1 trillion. Let me repeat it, $1 trillion in profits, not proceeds, in profits over the same time frame. And as we all pay more at the pump, big oil rakes in more money. Exxon boasts in its Securities and Exchange Commission filings that for every dollar increase in the price of oil, their profits rise by $375 million. For every dollar the price of oil goes up, they boast in their filings that their profits, not proceeds, profits rise by $375 million. The American driver's pain is big oil's profit. And what is big oil doing with its profits? Well, the answer is not a lot useful. As you can see in this chart, the profits from the big 5 oil companies were $137 billion in 2011. That's an impressive 75% increase from 2010. Did they use that extra money to produce more oil, as some of my colleagues here would suggest? No, they didn't. They took your money and actually, in that time frame, didn't produce a drop more of oil. As you can see, despite the fact that overall U.S. production is higher now than it has been in the last 8 years, last year, these 5 companies actually produced 4% less oil. They produce 4% less oil. So it's fair to ask, if they did not invest to produce more oil, then what are they doing with this $137 billion in profits, a 75% increase in profits in 1 year? Well, they spent about $38 billion repurchasing their own stock to enrich themselves, and they spent nearly $70 million on campaign contributions and lobbying to protect their billions of dollars in subsidies. As you can see here, it was a pretty smart investment. For every dollar that they spent in lobbying, they got about $30 in subsidies. One might say that's not a bad return on their investment. So, Madam President, instead of giving these subsidies to big oil so they can enrich themselves and seek to affect and control our political system, I think we could use some of those funds to reduce the deficit. I think we can all agree that we need to reduce the deficit, but there seems to be some considerable disagreement on how to do it. Last week, those on the other side of the aisle came out with what I call the Romney-Ryan budget, their proposed budget, and it would drastically cut funding for wounded soldiers, for seniors, for students, but it leaves in place these wasteful subsidies. It leaves in place these wasteful subsidies, even though we have this enormous profit. Now, through some political sleight of hand, they defy reality when they tell us with a straight face that we have to make tough choices, and then they cut funding for wounded soldiers, for seniors, and students, but won't touch the subsidies for big oil. Somehow in this Republican parallel universe, logic is turned on its head, and we are asked to believe that fairness doesn't mean treating everyone equally. It means more for the very rich and more for big oil. But we don't live in a parallel universe. We live in the real world. Fairness means that working families should not be the only people sacrificing, and we can't lower the deficit while we give taxpayer dollars away to big oil companies who are making record profits and not producing more energy. It's really amazing to me that anybody can come and make that argument.